argued in his op-ed that Washington's actions weakened the United Nations, which represent the only mechanism the world has to prevent conflict.
It's a fundamental principle of international law. It violates the UN Charter. The Charter states that states must not threaten or use force against the territorial integrity or political independence of any state. And this is what we are seeing.
The United States has argued that its actions were steeped in law enforcement against a fugitive who they allege was directly responsible for narco-terrorism that killed hundreds of thousands of Americans, further questioning Maduro's human rights record.
Is not just an indicted drug trafficker. He was an illegitimate so-called president. He was not a head of state. For years, Maduro and his cronies have manipulated Venezuela's electoral system to maintain their illegitimate grip on power. In fact, just 2 years ago, in 2024, a UN panel of experts report found that the election in that year was absolutely and completely a farce and fell well short of the most basic transparency and integrity measures essential to upholding credible elections.
An argument the UN Human Rights Office sought to address, having documented and reported on human rights abuses in Venezuela, including questionable election outcomes, calling for an end to unfair trials, arbitrary detention, enforced disappearances and persecution of political opponents, among other remedies.
Using human rights arguments as a justification for this kind of military intervention is unacceptable. Let us not pretend that this is an action taken in defense of human rights of anyone. This is an action that was taken in contravention of international law, and that is clear, and the international community needs to come together with one voice to insist on that, to make that clear, that this is an action that was in contravention of the international law that was set up by member states.
A view echoed by South Africa's representative in the Security Council on Monday.
That allegations of internal governance challenges, human rights concerns, or acts of criminality by a head of state cannot justify a breach of the Charter's prohibition on the use of force, particularly Article 2.4 of the Charter. The peaceful resolution of disputes and internal matters must proceed in accordance with international law and through multilateral mechanisms.
While others sought to spell out the role of the Security Council.
In the past month, President Trump has issued direct threats against 6 UN member states, including Colombia, Denmark, Iran, Mexico, Nigeria, and of course, Venezuela. Members of the Council are not called upon to judge Nicolas Maduro. They are not called upon to assess whether the recent U.S. attack and ongoing naval quarantine results in freedom or in subjugation. Members of the Council are called upon to defend international law, and specifically the UN Charter.
And on questions about who or what will run Venezuela moving forward, given statements by President Trump that it would be the United States, particularly as it related to that country's oil wealth.
Volker Türk calls on the U.S. and the Venezuelan Authority, as well as the international community, to ensure full respect for international law, including human rights. The future of Venezuela must be determined by the Venezuelan people alone, with full respect for their human rights, including the right to self-determination and sovereignty over their lives and their resources.
Türk also pointed to what history teaches us in these moments, that while attempts at regime change may initially be greeted by relief, they often lead to massive human rights violations, dangerous chaos and protracted violent conflict. A position asserted by Pretoria's envoy in the Council Monday, that history has repeatedly demonstrated that military invasions against sovereign states healed only instability and deepened crises, while undermining the principle of equality among nations. Sherwin Ricepies, SABC News, New York.